Hey,
Hi.
Brett.
Hi.
Can everybody say hi?
Hi.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Good.
Good, good.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great.
These are but just a few of the kids that participated in this year's Read Across Lawrence with Chasing Vermeer. They actually handed out about 1,100 books this year.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of young people all the way up to adults who are big fans of yours in this community, both with Chasing Vermeer and a series of unfortunate events. And we're just super excited to talk to you today about characters and creative process and everything it is that you do.
Yeah, great.
Brett, how did you become the illustrator on Chasing Vermeer?
It was a long time ago, and I was in the middle of doing the series of unfortunate events, and I was working with an editor at Scholastic. Her name was Tracy Mack. We were doing a book called Millie and the Macy's Parade, and she got the manuscript for Chasing Vermeer and thought I'd be good for it, asked me if I wanted to do it, and I read through it and said, of course, yeah, it'd be a great book. So it was simply that, just.
Someone knew you well enough to know you'd be a perfect fit for this project.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a good fit.
Very good. And are you a fan of Vermeer's paintings, or did your feelings towards Vermeer change or play into your work while illustrating Chasing Vermeer?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'd always admired, I think there's 2 or 3 Vermeers here at the Metropolitan Museum, and so I'd spent a lot of time looking at those before. And in fact, when they asked me to do this book, my one hesitation was the fact that it was about Vermeer and his art, and I, felt very intimidated approaching that. So there was a little bit of hesitation there, just because of the admiration I had for his work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of great to even hear that someone of your status and someone as well developed as you are still gets intimidated looking at other artists or gets in, it's hard to stand up to our heroes sometimes, right?
Yeah, it is. It happens all the time.
So who would you say is your favorite artist?
Well, it was funny. Just while I had a few minutes, I pulled him out because I thought you might ask that. My favorite artist, if you can see this, hopefully it's an old, there's a lot of glare on that. Let me find one you can see. N.C. Wyeth. That's his illustration from Treasure Island. Can you see that, everybody?
Everyone, can you see that? Yes.
Yeah, so that's my favorite artist, N.C. Wyeth. He was the father of Andrew Wyeth. Some of you may be familiar with his paintings. His father was a great American illustrator. And N.C. Wyeth, that's something from Treasure Island, and he illustrated a lot of great books. Here's a copy of Kidnapped. You can see how great those are, hopefully. Anyway, that's my favorite artist. And then along with that, if you can see that this is a really huge book, but then I also am a great lover of the old classic comics. And probably my favorite, if you can see this is really a huge book with Cumberland, if you can see a little bit of that and how fantastic that is.
And guys,
it's an old comic from the New York Herald way back in the turn of the century. It's beautiful. Anyway, drawn by a guy named Windsor McCay.
That's right. And in the library here, we have some wonderful Windsor McCay and Wyeth, even oversized books, guys, that you guys can look at and see some of these illustrators and artists that Brett is talking about. I've checked out the Little Nemo one enough times that I should probably buy a new copy for them. But
it's fantastic. Everyone should take a look at it.
Well, thank you. That's great. Now, when you get into developing characters, and we saw even you holding up your favorite artists there who are very much dealing with characters. How do you start to decide, Brett, how you will draw a character? Do you think a lot before you even start drawing? Do you use live models or any other tools? What is your approach to character development?
Good questions. I don't use live models. I draw them all from my head. just from my imagination. When I was learning how to do all this, we used to draw from models a lot, and I found that I felt so tied to the photograph that pictures became very lifeless and dull to me. And so I just, in the spirit of the old cartoonists that I admired so much, I thought, I looked at their work and I thought, there's no way they're drawing from models. So I started working on developing a way to draw that I could draw from my imagination. So I don't, you can see that I don't draw completely realistically. There's a stylization to what I do. And that's just something I've developed to help me do that. So I don't use models, just from my imagination. The first thing I do when I get a manuscript is I read it very carefully. And I'm just looking for details. I'm underlining and I'm marking. And first thing I'm looking for is the obvious thing. If the author says that a character has red curly hair, then I know it's got to have red curly hair or with green eyes or whatever. I pay attention to the physical descriptions that an author will give me. But then I'm also reading carefully just for trying to get a sense for the personality, trying to, I think like anyone who reads a book carefully, you start to get images of how that person looks in your head. And then what I do after I get all the specific details written down to make sure I'm getting those right, I just start drawing it. And it happens two ways. Sometimes I get it right on the first time, and it feels good from the start. Other times it takes 10 or 12 or sometimes more drawings where I just draw it and I look at it and that's not it. So I try something else. I make the face a little rounder or elongate the nose or something, or just make little changes and just keep going over and over and over. Eventually I just feel like I recognize the character. Once I get that sense of recognition, I know I feel like I'm there. So far I've never had an author that has complained that I got the character all wrong. I feel like I read the books very carefully and I try to give the author respect. And anyway, that's how I do it. It's just trial and error. I just draw one face, I look at it and say yes or no. Sometimes it's close. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's almost there. And then I'll just make some little subtle adjustment. Make the hair a little longer or a little curlier, whatever. Or something. And keep going until I start to see what I think I recognize in that character.
Right, working and revising until you recognize the person in your head that you're already seeing from the words. Yeah. Very good. Excellent.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, like Petra for Chasing Vermeer, she came rather quickly. And some of the characters, Violet Baudelaire came fairly quickly, but Klaus and Sonny took a little longer, and Olaf took me many, many tries to get him right. And so it all depends on just the character. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it takes a lot of work.
Right. Excellent. On a little different route here, Calder and Petra eat blue M&Ms when they think about the mystery. Do you have a special food or something you like to do when you need a creative boost or you find yourself at a moment needing inspiration?
Yeah, I can't say that I really have any special food, but I have a few habits at the studio. I like to if I'm really stuck and mentally blocked, a good walk around the block does it for me usually, just to clear my head. Looking at my old books, looking at, if I'm stuck creatively, spending a little time with Little Nemo and Slumber Tent, it just opens up the creative mind. Spending some time with the artists, N.C. Wyeth and others that I admire. Certain music I listen to now and then helps. I like really early jazz and blues from the 30s and things. That usually opens up my mind a bit. So things like that. I don't have any special food.
No, but I think that was wonderful. That was great. If we were to ask your friends, what are 3 words they would use to describe you?
Depends on which friend. Geez, that was such a hard. I was trying to talk that over with my wife to get a sense, because I don't know how people think of me. But my first thought when I thought of that was that I move kind of slowly. I'm not a fast guy at all. So slow, probably. Not up here, hopefully, but I move around slowly. And I like to think I'm a good friend, and I'm usually generally in a pretty good mood. I'm a pretty mellow guy.
Excellent. All admirable traits, and possibly even in our limited interaction here, it seems that you're so thoughtful that maybe that's where people get that you're slow. It seems like maybe you're a measured response.
Maybe, maybe.
When you were a kid, Brett, what was it you liked to draw then, when you were first starting out or when you were a young person?
Yeah, well, I have kind of a funny story. I'm not the kid that was the obsessed artist all his life, and I've always drawn things, but it was, when I was young, it was just here and there every few months, or even as few as, you know, sometimes I'd draw a funny picture of my teacher or something and pass it around the class for laughs, and I don't know, it took me a long time to really take it seriously. So when I was young, whatever came to my mind, it was usually caricatures of friends or teachers, and sometimes trying to make a cartoon of something that happened that I thought was funny. But I think early and no one would have thought that I would become an artist, because I just did. It was just here and there. But I always loved the old comics, and I love to read those in the newspaper, and when I could find them at the library. And that was always there, so it was more on the side of an appreciator for a longest time. And I was in my mid-20s before I decided to take this seriously and really learn how to do it. And that's kind of a long story, but once I did, it just kind of took over and consumed me, and here I am. So, but early on, it was, when I did started taking it seriously, it was doing my best to do my own N.C. Wyeth-like paintings, kind of high adventure, pirates and things like that. I've always loved pirates and sailors and adventurers, and so anyway, it took me a long time to learn the skills that I hopefully have now. But yeah, that's.
But you were attracted to those big epic moments then in the beginning, huh?
Yeah, definitely. That was always there, being an appreciator, but it took me a long time to take it seriously as a creator myself.
That's a great lesson too, though, right? About it may take a while to figure things out sometimes, or to decide which path you're on.
Yeah, definitely. It's never too late to learn.
So you kind of just addressed this. We were going to ask you, when did you know you actually wanted to be an artist then? So we've kind of set that up. What happened in your 20s that kind of was that moment that you decided you wanted to be an artist?
Well, I was living in Hong Kong time. I was just, after I finished high school, I spent a couple of years in Hong Kong, and while I was there, I just fell head over heels for Chinese painting and calligraphy. That's where it started, and so I started to dabble learning that. And then I was back at the university in Utah, Brigham Young University. I was, in an for my general ed, I had to take an art credit, so I took a class they called painting for non-art majors, and I just fell in love with that class, and it kind of took over my mind, and I found myself hurrying to do my engineering work so I could get to the painting, which was what I wanted, even though it was just a credit to fill something to help me graduate. It didn't really mean it, but it slowly just took over, and I started asking questions and met some friends, and then I met a friend who had a friend who was in the illustration program at the same university, and I talked to him, and then I just took a semester off and took some classes there and thought I'd give it a try. And once I started taking those classes, it just kind of took over, and I just couldn't think of anything else for the longest time.
Excellent. That's a wonderful way that it presented it to you, and you were open to it when it presented it to you. You said, okay, let's do this. So in the book, there's a great teacher, Miss Hussey, in Chasing Vermeer. Have you had many great teachers, and if so, would you want to tell us a little bit about any of them?
Sure. In high school, I had a great teacher. His name was Mr. Hill. He was my, like I say, it was mid-20s before I took art seriously, but in high school, I was obsessed with mechanical drafting, which is drawing houses or machine. It's making, and I was just in love with that I could that they would offer me, and it's kind of an old-fashioned art now. It's all done on computers now, but we did it with the pencil and T-squares and triangles, really old tools, and I just fell in love with it. That might have been the start of where I got. Who knows? Because I was drawing then, and he was such a great teacher, and just taught me, you know, if nothing else, it wasn't so much art, but it was just a respect for a craft, really learning to devote yourself to a discipline and a craft. And even though at first glance it's just drawing machine parts, but to him it was very deep and important. And you know, he taught me to take it very seriously and to really learn it. And just really a great man. Really loved him. And I've had others along the way too. In college I had some great teachers. And, you know, I've been lucky with teachers, actually.
Excellent, excellent. So you touched a little bit earlier about drawing not necessarily from models or from life, but from your head a little more now, and how your drawings all have your own style to them. They have your own touch to them. How did that style develop? How did you get from scientific drawings in high school all the way to this look now that people can recognize you by?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of trial and error. You know, I said it, you know, like I said, it's not realistic now, but a lot of what I learned from drawing realistically, from the figure. You know, in figure drawing classes, we had a model that would stand in front of us, and we would just sit and try to draw that as accurately as possible. And that was to kind of learn the discipline and the form. And so there's that aspect. And then along the way, I was trying to do things on my own, and my first attempts to do things from my imagination were very clumsy and they're kind of laughable now, but at least to my eyes anyway. So it took so I spent a lot of time practicing the science of drawing, you know, the real craft of it, drawing accurately and deliberately, and then spending time with my imagination, and then just, you know, slowly they creep together. And you know, I started using skills that I learned in both. And so, you know, as far as how the style developed, like I say, my first attempts at doing things in my own from my own imagination were very clumsy, and but I just kept trying them, and as I got more skill, they got better and better. And how some things don't work, and the thing that works you try to get on your next picture. And sometimes it works again, sometimes it doesn't, you know, but it's kind of a natural selection after a while. Certain things that work, you keep doing over and over, and things that something that is kind of unique to the way you think and the way you draw, you know. So if you are thinking about pursuing art on your own, you know, don't worry about style so much. Just keep trying to make good pictures, and eventually you will be doing them in kind of your own way.
Very good.
I think it just kind of happens naturally.
Yeah, very good. And as a kind of follow-up to that, while your style is recognizable throughout all of your pieces, you sometimes work in a variety of mediums or materials. How do you make a choice as you're starting a project, which materials are the right one for that project?
Well, I kind of do three, as far as I think about it, there's kind of three different styles I do. One is the full color thing that you see on the covers of like the Chasing Vermeer and the Unfortunate Event in my other books, full color. And that I do with oil paint. And then there's the black and white paintings that are like the black and whites that you see in the Chasing Vermeer book. And that's essentially the same thing as the full color. I just don't add the color. I just use black and white paint. So it's just a simplified form of painting. But then there's, if you look at the series of Unfortunate Event, that's a slightly different style that I do with pencil. That's just a simple pencil drawing using some pen and ink techniques. But as far as how I choose it, one, if black and white and color is a simple one, that's just the nature of the book. A book like Chasing Vermeer, they contract me to do a color cover and a black and white interior. Just because, you know, printing a full color book is expensive. It costs more money to print in color. So to keep those books at a price that's nice for everyone to buy, we usually do black and white illustrations inside and a nice color cover. A picture book for a young reader. There's we do that in full color sometimes. So the first choice, black and white or color, is always the book, decides that usually. And then as far as which style I use, whether I use the pencil drawing in black and white or the painted style in Chasing Vermeer, it's usually a discussion I have with the editor and the art director, feeling they would like the book to have. And sometimes it's subject matter. The Unfortunate Events has a feeling of being very of a different time. It felt very Victorian when I read it the first time. So some of that was an attempt to just stylistically feel a little older. And Chasing Vermeer was in our time, so I didn't want it to have that old feeling, so I chose to paint it instead. So sometimes there's choices like that, but sometimes it's just talking to the editor and getting a feel for what they had envisioned when they decided to use me to create the book in the first place, what kind of feel they were after.
Excellent. So a bit of a combination then of what is needed for that final product to the output,
Yeah.
and then also what is the appropriate mark for you as a storyteller to add to the story, to the depth of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we've kind of talked about your favorite artists and what inspires you in that way. You've even touched on music and jazz. Is there anything else that you would list in your what inspires you category?
What do you like to read? I like to read good stories. Those are always inspiring. Music and art, movies, any kind of storytelling can inspire me. Movies, cartoons, theater even. I don't get a chance to go to the theater as often as I'd like to, but I do find that inspiring also. And then just, beyond all that, I live in New York City, which is a city full of a lot of strange people. So I love to just get out and see what people are looking like on the street and what they're doing. And that's the kind of thing, inspiration you can get anywhere. Just about any town has a bunch of strange people in it, I'm sure. So people around me, also in the city here, the architecture, surrounded by great museums too, so that's nice. All good stuff, yeah.
Excellent. And then you've mentioned going out for walks. You've mentioned seeing the people around you and the architecture. We could probably guess that your studio is a favorite place to work, but do you have any other favorite places to work?
I do most of my work either at my studio or here at my home. That's where I am now. So sometimes, after the kids go, I have 2 children, after they're in bed, I'll put in a few extra hours here. But I pretty much stick to my studio and home usually. Once in a while, there's a great library here in New York that has a great picture collection, and when I'm doing research for a new project to get some visual ideas to use or some sense of the costume that a character might read or wear, I spend a lot of time at the picture library, and sometimes I do some sketch work while I'm there also. So.
Excellent. Yes, our library is great.
Yeah, they are. I love libraries. They are good.
If you could, Brent, if you could illustrate any story, what would you pick?
It's been done many, many times, but if I had one book that I could illustrate, it would definitely be Treasure Island. It's my favorite book I've ever read.
Very good.
When I was a kid, and still is. I've read that, 5 or 6 times in my life, every time. Never get tired of it. So I would like to add, if I had the chance, I would, even though, like I say, it's been done many times, I would like to add my 2 bits to it. So.
Oh, excellent. Well, we will look forward and hope for maybe somehow in the future that definitely starts to take shape. Do you make other kinds of art besides your drawings and paintings for the books?
When I get some time, I work in my sketchbook and do a few paintings of my own, but my favorite thing to paint by far is people, especially faces, and so my sketchbook is just full of faces, and when I get time to do my own, usually that's what I do. It's either a portrait of somebody that I've seen or just somebody I've made up, just a funny character, or just some random face that I make up, just practicing those skills. And but that's always what I fall back on. I love to paint a face.
Very good. Let's see. What was it like working on the Lemony Snicket books? Did you work with the author? Did you work with him closely? Just what was that process like?
No, I worked with him very little. Usually, that's usually the way it is on all of my books, with the exception of Chasing Vermeer, which I'll tell you about in a second. But in most cases, the author, through the editor, sends me a manuscript, which is just, a stack of papers printed from their computer. It's the book before it's a book, before it's bound up. And I read it. That's my interaction with the author. I read what they've written very carefully. And occasionally, sometimes I'll get an early manuscript, so it's still a little rough in places. So if I'm confused about what's happening, or if there's a detail that's not quite clarified, I'll, give them usually through the editor, I'll ask them, to help me understand what they're trying to say there, just so I get it right. But other than that, there's very little interaction. It's all, respecting the manuscript, and that's why I really read it carefully. I figure anything they want to tell me should be in there. So now I mentioned the Blue, the author of Chasing Vermeer, was an exception, and she. Now you've read Chasing Vermeer, so it's very specific to the place that it takes place. The neighborhood is very important to the story, and so I really felt like I needed to understand that neighborhood and get it accurate. So Blue was very gracious and let me stay with her for about a week and just took me around her neighborhood and showed me what inspired her to write the story and where she thought things were happening in the story, the places she had in her mind where events happened, and I took a lot of pictures while I was there so I could get that neighborhood right. And so Blue was a little different. We've become friends over the years, and she's just a fantastic person, and I've been able to get to know her a lot better than I have most authors. I was really fortunate on that to have that chance. So with that exception, I have very little contact with the authors when I do a book.
Very good, very good. Are you working on illustrating a new book? Is it anything you can tell us about? Is there anything we can get excited for, looking forward to?
Sure. Right. Well, I just last year we just put out a new edition of the Doll People series. I don't know if any of you are familiar with The Doll People by Anne Martin and Laura Godwin. I just illustrated the fourth book in that series, and it was released last year. I wasn't the original. The original three books were done by Brian Selznick. I picked up the fourth. So there's that, and then along with that, we're working on a new picture book. So a really heavily illustrated story with those characters. So there's that coming up, and then I'm also working on two other picture books. One's about the tennis stars from the 70s and 80s, Martina Navratilova and Chrissy Everett. I don't know if any of you know, a nonfiction book about them. And then I'm working on another picture book, which is a really young reader. Lots of bears and bunnies and things. So that's what that is for now. So yeah, I've got a good stack.
Yeah, very busy. That's great.
Yeah.
So when you're not illustrating, which it sounds like I don't know when that could be, as busy as you just listed yourself being, but when you're not illustrating, what do you like to do?
Well, I have two great young kids, so I spend a lot of time with them, playing and doing things, and we draw pictures a lot and make books ourselves. When all that's done, and if I just have a free moment to myself, I love to play the guitar. So that's what I do.
Excellent, guitar playing, wonderful. Music's wonderful.
Yeah.
If you could have any piece of art, not that we would suggest the route taken in Chasing Vermeer, but if you could have any piece of art, what would you pick?
Well, not to be redundant, but
right?
Treasure Island. I'll show it to you.
Yeah? There's a specific one.
Yep, that one right there. Can you see that? Oh, there we go. There it is. Can you see that?
Yes, and out of all of the Wyeth images in Treasure Island, what makes that the one?
I don't know. It's just a beautiful painting, just the lighting and the characters and just the composition. It's just a beautiful, beautiful picture to me. It's the Long John Silver and Jim Hawkins, you know, kind of the hero and the villain of the story. And I don't know. I just love that picture.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then,
But
do you have, as we kind of get towards the end here, I think you had been kind enough to offer up maybe a slight demo or a demonstration, and then also while you're, oh, go ahead, and then maybe some advice for aspiring artists as we kind of set that up or work towards that or whatever.
okay, sure, sure. What do you want first?
How about the advice? What advice do you have for aspiring artists?
Well, I'll tell you, it's really simple, and you know, art unfortunately is sometimes taught as a thing that you either have or you haven't. You either have talent or you don't. And so my first advice is to throw that notion out the window. I look at art and everything I do as a craft. It is very learnable. You just have to devote the time and attention to it. And it takes time, sometimes many years. So if you do have aspirations to create art, if right now you can find a good teacher, do that and just learn everything you can from them. If you can't find a teacher, there's many good books in the library. There's a set of good books written by a guy named Jack Ham on cartooning and figure drawing that I think are fantastic. There's some great books out there written by a guy named Chris Hart that I've seen lately that are really good about comic book art and kind of things that that kids these days might be interested in. I think they're very good. Any books by a guy named Andrew Loomis, if you can find those, they're fantastic. So my first advice and what I tell everybody is commit yourself to learning it as a craft. And if you want to do it, you can learn how to do it. No matter where you are now, it's a learnable thing. There's skills you can learn and develop. And even creativity is really just, it's a skill that you can learn and develop. And I'm kind of skeptical of the notion that some people are more creative than others and some are talented. You know, it's all in what you choose to learn. So start now and keep learning. And that would be my best advice for you guys at this age right now. Because, you know, the professional side of things, of how to get your name out there and how to find the work and stuff, that changes year to year. And it'll probably be very different when you get to where I am than how I did it. So at your age, my advice to you would just be to learn everything you can about making pictures and using pictures to tell stories, and just keep working at it. You'll get there. You'll get better.
Very good. Never stop learning and keep working hard, right?
Yep.
Very good. Well, then we
More
are
important.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, hard work and learning are far more important than talent ever is.
Beautiful. Well, are you up for the demo, Brett?
Yeah, I'll give it a try. I was just going to show you how I draw Petra, and with this disclaimer that I did that book about 10 years ago, and I haven't drawn Petra for a long time. I've been practicing a little bit before we talked to try to get her back, but each time I do a book, it takes me a while to learn how to draw the characters, and then by the time I move on to another... So I'm going to show you how I construct her, but she may not be perfect, so but I just want to show you a simple idea about drawing any face, and use Petra to kind of show it to you.
Excellent.
And this goes along with what I was talking about learning things as a skill. You know, you think drawing a face can be difficult, and it is. It takes time to learn how to do it properly, but there's a process that you go through and that you can learn to develop. And as you practice that and learn to have more skill with that, you get better and better at it. So I'm just going to kind of introduce you to that using Petra. So I'm going to turn my computer now, and all you'll see is a pad of paper and hear me, and you'll see my hand, okay? So, and we'll do a little test and make sure you can see the pencil scratches I'm doing. And if you can't see the pencil, I'll try to do it with a magic marker. Okay, so okay, can you see my drawing pad there, everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now let me just see. Can you see that circle that I just drew with the pencil?
Yes.
Is that clear, or should I do it with a marker?
No, it's clear.
Okay, okay, good, because it's a lot easier to do it with a pencil. Okay, so on that, like I said, there's a process to drawing head faces, and almost every face starts with, you know, you don't start with drawing the eyes in great detail or the nose. You start with very simple shapes. Usually most heads start with a circle. Probably 80% of all the heads I draw start with a simple circle that everybody can draw. Some characters that are a little unusual, like Count Olaf, he starts with a big triangle. But, and some can start with a square or a rectangle. But most characters start with a circle. So I'm just going to do that again. I'm just going to draw a big circle. Okay, and that's how Calder starts this way too, just the same simple circle. But then what distinguishes them, we have to, most of us don't have round faces. Usually you think of a face, you think of it as an oval, right? But when you're drawing, you know, it's the reason I start with a circle, because drawing an oval is hard. It's hard to draw an oval consistently every time, because I don't know how, that distance is hard to judge visually. So, but if I start with a circle, everybody can draw that. And then with Petra, all I know, I have to add a chin, okay? And with Petra, I just know to add about that much, because she has a rather round face if you look at her, okay? With Calder, I'm just going to do a mini Calder right here. I'll start with the circle. I'll make a little longer. He's got a long, narrow face. But you can see it's easier to draw that consistently each time if I just draw a circle and then I know I add a shape like that for Petra. So give me just, I'm going to refine this a little bit. It's hard to draw from that angle, so forgive me.
Sure, and when you refine it, Brett, is there any way you could put another book under your board or bring it up just a tiny bit?
Yes, of course. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
So sorry.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so now you can see the Calder that I drew, right?
Almost.
Can you see that? Almost. Okay, another book. I have plenty of books around here, so.
Hey, there he is. Yay. Thank you.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, sorry about that. So the next thing I do is I'm going to draw Petra in a 3/4 view, which is, you know, kind of when somebody's not fully profile, not fully frontal to you, okay? It's kind of turned 3/4, so I can see a little bit of both sides of her face. And right down the center, from the top of her head to her chin, I'm just going to draw a line. And that's just a light line that's going to disappear as the drawing progresses. And then I also, right there where the circle meets that line that I drew for the chin, about halfway from the chin to the top of the head, I draw another line. And you can see I'm just curving it just a little bit to address the curvature of the head. And all these are lines is this, again, I have to draw this face in a book, you know, 40, 50 times, and I want it to look consistent each time. So I put rather than just putting the eyes somewhere, I put them here, and then I hang them on this. Does that make sense? I hang them on the framework, and that helps me draw it consistently. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and so, and then once I make that mark right there where the eyes go, I make another division about halfway from there to the chin. And that's where the nose hangs. And then close to halfway, but a little above halfway, I put another mark, and that's where we hang the mouth. And that's the framework that I build all my heads on. The details change. Like I say, sometimes the chin's a little longer, sometimes it's a little shorter. Starts with a circle, adding a shape for the chin, and putting some markers down. And this is this is what I was talking about, the skills you can learn as you develop as an artist. And this is something that all people use. Sometimes I can do it. I've done it long enough that I can do it a little more intuitively, and I don't always have to draw every line, but I am thinking them in my head. Okay, so now Petra. The last thing I do is I add a little dip right there where the eye line is, and that's just for the eye socket. Okay, and then I round out her cheek there a little bit. She's got some nice round cheeks and a little bit of finesse on the chin. I just add a little bit for the chin there. And let me see how this is looking. This is really hard to draw at this angle. I'm sorry.
You're doing great.
Okay, so, and then I just kind of finesse it a little bit. You know, you can see I'm redrawing what I drew to get the shape just right. Okay, and let me see, I brought my Chasing Vermeer book out so I could look at Petra and remember how I drew her. Okay, so now Petra, the very important feature of her is her glasses. So before I do the eyes, I'm even going to put the glasses on. And she's got some nice, and you see how I'm hanging that right on that mark where I established for the eyes. So, and since this is 3/4 views, this one's closer to me, this one's a little further away, so I make it a little bit smaller. So I'm just drawing those shapes. Like I say, this is going to be rough because doing a good drawing takes hours and hours, and we don't have that. So I'm just going to give you my quick rough version, and then show you where I start. Okay, and then for the eye, then once I've got that, I add eyes. And eyes, I'm really simple. My eyes are a variation on usually just a line for the upper eyelid, and then the iris of the eye. And I add a little bit around that, but that's how I always started. It's just a simple symbol that isn't necessarily all the details of an eye, but it does the job, telling a story. So I'm going to give Petra her eyes here. Okay, and then her nose, I hang it right on that mark. I'm going a little bit below it. And with the nose on Petra, I use kind of a simple triangle shape. And that's where I start. I add some, did you see how I did that? This part's the underside of the nose that catches a shadow. And so it's a little darker. But that's all I do for noses. And then I'll add a little details. And then I take that line up and create the eyebrow. See how I'm building that face? Very simple. And then for the mouth, I usually start with a line, and then I just create the lips around that. Okay, and then Petra. So that's basically Petra's face, more or less. So it's not perfect at her neck. But now, Petra, her most distinguishing feature is probably her hair. So with Petra, the most important thing about drawing hair is to not worry about every little curl and every hair, because that'll start to look just fuzzy. But it's to get the overall shape. And the basic shape of Petra's hair is a big triangle. I'm going to just rough it out there and see without the pointy top. But at the base, I guess it's kind of trapezoidish. So I just rough in the shape, and then I add a few details, a few curls. And like I say, I would spend hours getting this just right if I had the time. But that's kind of the framework that I start to build all my characters on. Just a rough outline, and I add details after that, and color, and kind of finesse the shapes here and there when necessary. But hopefully that helps. That's just a simple way to start drawing a face. Draw a circle, add a shape for the chin, divide it up. Get half here, and then halfway from here to here is the nose. Halfway from here to there is the mouth. And then just add simple features to that. Eye can be as simple as circles. A nose can be as simple as an oval shape. And a mouth can be as simple as a line, you see. So if you want to create characters of your own, you don't need a lot of skill to start drawing a very simple face and get a lot of expression out of it. Anyway, I hope that's helpful.
That was wonderful.
And if you're interested, if you go to my website, bretthelquist.com, there's a link there that says news. If you click on that, that'll take you to my blog, which the only reason I'm telling you there, I'm not very regular with it, so I can't guarantee when they'll be up and how often, but I do on occasion post drawing lessons. There's a few up there now, so if you're interested in starting to learn, you can start with some really simple drawing. On a few that are already up there, it takes you through a little more detail about drawing a basic face and some things you can start to do to learn how to draw characters and explore that a little bit. So if you want to check that out, it's all up there for free and everything. So,
wow, that's very generous. Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, sure.
Very good. Well, thank you very much to Brett Helquist. Did we have, I think maybe just one or two, do we have any questions? Yes, right here.
When you did choosing Vermeer, I noticed that it did something kind of like with optical illusions. Was it a little hard to draw drawing when the story had something to do with optical illusions?
Brett, could you hear that?
It was kind of in and out. It's something about the optical illusion.
Yes. How was it difficult when the drawings called for those optical illusions? Did you have to do anything special or extra when dealing with those?
Yeah, I think. Well, are you talking about the kind of the code that I hid in the pictures?
One thinking about like the one with that weird camera that turns things upside down.
With the weird camera that turns things upside down.
Because like in one of these pictures by Vermeer, there's this there are these two people that are right next to each other, but one of them is bigger than the other. But I don't mean like taller, bigger. I mean like they're actually like kind of like a lot bigger than the other person.
Oh, the bigger character in the foreground and the right. Okay, well that's just me playing with. Yeah. That I know what you're talking about now. That's me playing with perspective, which is trying to create the illusion of space in a picture. And one thing I really have fun doing with is playing with different points of view. So I like to try to get a character really up close so we can see them up close, and then the person in the background, if you're at the right point of view, they can start to look very small. You know, if you just pay attention, look around you at how much bigger things closer to you are than things in the background. And I'm just playing with ideas of perspective on those. And I like to exaggerate it a little bit, so it's a little more exaggerated than you would really see in your day-to-day life. But I think it's a fun pictorial effect to just draw some contrast in size between two characters. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Why do you put frogs in some of your illustrations?
Oh, okay. So the frogs, if you've read the book, you've heard about the frogs, right? Now the frogs have something to do. In some of the pictures, there's a hidden code, and you kind of have to figure out what the code is first, how to decode it. If you can get a little surprise message at the end of it, okay? And I don't want to tell you any more than that because it's part of the fun of reading the book to figure out the code in the pictures. But the frogs are part of it. I'll give you that much.
Very good. Very good. Well, Brett, thank you so much for your time with us and spending some time in Lawrence, Kansas today.
You're welcome. I'm happy to. It's good to talk to you guys.
Absolutely. We're all very inspired and very thankful to have had some time with you today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Can everyone say thank you to Brett?
All right. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.